your body. But if you win, you go to heaven. But so change of bodies is actually good, because we might not be happy with our body. There's so many things we might not like about this body, right? And everyone will have something they don't like about it. Maybe something about their mind, or maybe their physical appearance, or some physical ability or mental ability they might not like about themselves. So change of bodies is not a bad thing. So you get a new body, a new start, right? But intelligence, real intelligence, means is to get a spiritual body, and that is the perfection of all types of bodies, because there is no birth, death, old age, and disease, and one is always in the association of Krishna. So here, Srila Prabhupada in the Prabhupada, he mentions that one has to become a dhira, right? So a dhira is one who is able to, who is not disturbed by the happiness and distresses of this body. That is dhira. So dhira tatrana muyati, Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita. So, and he also explains matra, sparsha, sukonteya, sitoshna, sukha dukkha, alma bhayana, smrite, sthan sutikshva, nabharata. So Krishna explains that the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance are like the appearance and disappearance of the summer and winter seasons. So one should not be disturbed by them. So one way to not be disturbed is to cultivate knowledge. So when we cultivate knowledge, then we understand about the nature of this world. So by understanding the nature, we can become a bit more tolerant. So Prabhupada gives the example of the wife who is cooking in the summer season. So when Prabhupada wrote in that context, there were not many air conditioners. So when people were cooking, there was the rooms were not probably they were not air conditioned, and it was very, very, very hot. And then you have the stove on, so it gets even hotter. Like if you go in the kitchen, sometimes I don't know about the new kitchen, but with the old kitchen, it used to get very hot. So I think the new kitchen has air conditioning, but with the old one, there was no air conditioning, and there's so many flames which are on, right? There's a burner, and it's heating up a massive pot, so it gets very hot, and there's so many devotees there, so it gets hot. But one tolerates that because one is trying to accomplish a goal, a higher objective. So then one is able to tolerate that. So here Srila Prabhupada is saying, and Krishna is saying, that one has to tolerate the dualities of this world. And the nature of this world is, it is full of dualities. So there is heat and cold, there's happiness and distress, fame and infamy. So one moment someone is praising us, then we get criticized. But one has to learn to tolerate that and not be disturbed by that. So we might think, yes, I should tolerate distress, but what about happiness? But here it is said one should not be disturbed by happiness also, material happiness. So we can easily identify with not being disturbed by pleasure, but what's wrong with being disturbed by happiness? But it is said that if one can be disturbed by happiness and distress, because they both take one away from one's real purpose in life, which is to be focused on Krishna. So material happiness also leads to distraction, right? So for example, if someone suddenly inherits a lot of money, they might become so happy, and then they get distracted. They get absorbed in various material pleasures, because that money can facilitate that. So then that takes one away from bhakti. So happiness is also a distraction, and so is distress. They both are distractions. So here Krishna is saying that one has to learn to tolerate them. And then Srila Prabhupada explains that the best way to tolerate is to be absorbed in the service of Krishna. That is the best way. So if one who is absorbed in devotional service, then they can easily tolerate the challenges which life brings. And there's so many examples of absorption of devotees on the Supreme Lord. We see in the Damodar pastime how when Krishna was stealing the butter hanging from the rafters, the Mother Yashoda and the gopis, they were churning the butter again for the Supreme Lord, for the consumption of Supreme Lord and for his pleasure. So they were churning the butter, and then they were storing it in pots. And as we know, baby Gopala's pastimes, he would steal the butter and have it, consume it, and then share it with the monkeys and others as well. So this was the pastime of the Supreme Lord. So, and this is a very, very absorbing pastime, because generally we see people are absorbed in children, in babies, right? So when there's a baby, suddenly everyone's attention is diverted. And you can see that when you're giving a talk and there's a baby who is running around or a bit agitated, then everyone's attention suddenly diverts. So children are very absorbing by nature. Babies are absorbing. So then Krishna, he gives his devotees the opportunity for Vatsalya Ras, of parenthood, where they can be absorbed in serving him. They can take the role of parents and be absorbed in looking after him. So Mother Yashoda was churning the butter, and then she had kept some milk boiling on the stove, and then the milk the flame was on for some time, and then the milk was boiling. So she got up to turn off the heat, basically. And in the meanwhile, Krishna came and he plundered the butter. So when Mother Yashoda, she came back, she saw the Supreme Lord, eating the butter and the cream. So she thought, I'll teach him a lesson. So Mother Yashoda, first she chased Krishna for a while, and then when she finally was able to catch Krishna, she bound him on a mortar, and she tried to tie him with ropes. So she tried to tie him with a rope, and then somehow she was unable. It was 2 fingers short. The rope was 2 fingers short. Then she got another rope. She tied that rope to the existing rope, and then again it was 2 fingers short. And that way she got all the ropes, and she was unable to tie. Then she got all the ropes from the neighborhood, and she was still unable to tie Krishna. And she was so absorbed in tying Krishna that her hair became disabled, and the flowers on the hair, they fell on the ground. But she didn't realize that, because she was very absorbed in serving Krishna, and that absorption was very pleasing to Krishna. So that absorption became very pleasing to Krishna, so much so that Krishna, he allowed Mother Yashoda to tie her. So we can see that absorption in the service of the Lord is pleasing to Krishna, is pleasing to the Lord. So one becomes absorbed in something, usually one becomes absorbed in something greater than oneself. So one has to find a cause which is greater than oneself and become absorbed in it. So absorption is through contribution, right? Contribution to something which is bigger than oneself. And we see people are absorbed in various things according to the modes of nature, and according to which the mode of nature they are situated in. They are absorbed in various causes. And we see like there are some people who are absorbed in, who are in the mode of ignorance, they are absorbed in very destructive causes. For example, some people are absorbed in carrying out terrorist acts. So yes, they are, when one is absorbed in a cause bigger than oneself, it gives one some degree of satisfaction, right? So, a parent is absorbed in serving their family, so that is a cause bigger than themselves, and they get pleasure in doing that, and they're able to do that. They go through the motions of work, and even though there are some inconveniences in that activity, but it still gives one pleasure, because it is a cause bigger than themselves, and they're absorbed in it. So for a terrorist is also absorbed in a cause bigger. So some people think, okay, if I blow myself up, I will get 100 virgins in heaven or whatever. So there is a cause which is bigger than themselves, and they're absorbed in it. And in the course of that activity, they create so much destruction for themselves and for others. Then there are people in the mode of passion who are absorbed in various causes. They want they are expanding their field of activities, and they try controlling different things like that. And then there are people in the mode of goodness who are also absorbed in various causes, humanitarian activities, philanthropic activities. They are absorbed in so many activities. So, but the question is, what type of absorption do we need? So here it is mentioned that one needs to be absorbed in the devotional service of the Lord. And being absorbed in the devotional service of the Lord, it will, then one can be totally aloof from this body. So we see so many examples of acharyas who were totally absorbed. We can take the example of Srila Prabhupada. He was so absorbed in serving the Lord, and he was totally aloof from the needs of the body. Srila Prabhupada was sleeping maybe 2 or 3 hours a day. If we look at the schedule of Srila Prabhupada, his daily routine, he would go to bed around 11, wake up around 2 o'clock, 2 a.m., then translate his books for a number of hours in the dead of the night. And then he would chant his rounds, go for a walk, chant his rounds, come back, attend, greet the deities, give class, and then go about traveling and managing his so many temples and projects, guiding devotees, and he was giving talks. So this was Srila Prabhupada's routine. He was pretty much aloof from the body, and he was eating a very little bit of food. And we even see the Goswamis, the Shad Goswamis, they lived very austere lives, and they were practically not eating and sleeping. So we see devotees who are very advanced, who are fully absorbed in Krishna. They are totally aloof from the needs of the body, but we cannot imitate them. We cannot imitate their activities. So for us, we need to look after the needs of the body, and we need to be the needs of the body need to be taken care of, because we are not on that level. In the Shastra, we see some avaduts also, right? So avaduts, like Prahlad Maharaj, he came across the Python man. So he was absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord. He was just lying on the street. Whatever came, he ate. if nice palatable foods came, he ate that. If he was offered very austere food, he ate that. If he was not offered anything, that was fine. So there are examples of avaduts in the Shastra who are totally aloof from their material circumstances, but they are still absorbed in thoughts of the Lord. We cannot artificially imitate such advanced devotees. So for us, we need to strike a balance. And Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he also mentions a yogi is one who is balanced in his eating, sleeping, and recreation. Right? So the balance is very important. So as devotees, we have to balance our lives. And at some point we do focus more on one activity, then other times we focus more on the other activity. And that's what it means to balance. So for us, we cannot say that this body is Maya. And especially in the initial stages, devotees can have the tendency to think that the needs of the body are Maya. And one has to be just focused on devotional service. But we've seen that doesn't last too long. Then soon after, they get derailed. So the needs of the body are also important. So one needs adequate level of comfort, and for each one of us that can be different. So what is comfort for one devotee could be different for another devotee, depending on how they've grown up and how they've been raised in their life. So that is different for everyone. So for everyone, it is different. One needs to see what is the needs of their body, and take care of those needs. So once the needs of the body are taken care of, then one can focus on Krishna conscious activities, and then one can be absorbed in spiritual activities. So if one does not take care of the needs of the body, then one cannot be absorbed. So if you are sleeping too less, then it's very difficult to be absorbed in anything. What to speak of spiritual activities. It's very difficult to be absorbed in anything. And similarly with eating, if we are eating too rich foods, then again it is difficult to be, then the consequence of that is one will sleep. The immediate consequence is one will sleep and one will get sick. So one has to balance one's eating. Not too austere, but not too opulent also. And one has to eat what is good for us. So even in prasadam, we have to be selective. We need to be selective what we're eating, otherwise we'll get sick. And then we can balance our lives. So do you have any questions or comments on this subject matter? Yes,
Something about being absorbed into the way you should be absorbed.
Yes.
Obviously, she's a liberated soul. We just see that.
Yes.
So we're practicing. We do have times of absorption, but maybe how do you find ways to be absorbed? How do you find ways to be absorbed?
Okay, how do I find? What I find works for me is reading the Shastra. So when I read the Shastra, then I find myself to be more absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So when I'm not reading Shastra, then my absorption in other activities, in service, absorption becomes less. So like going through the motions, but not really absorbed. So for me, when I read the Shastra, then it reaffirms my purpose of life, and and then I'm much more focused. Otherwise, sometimes many times I'm chanting, but totally not absorbed in the chanting. So just chanting, but mind is totally somewhere else. And or even someone's doing service, but the mind is not there. So when I read Shastra, then immediately, for some time at least, then I see that I try to focus more and become more absorbed. And when we are absorbed, the benefit we get is far more. And that's the problem, is we are not focused. So we are not focused on anything. So when we are at work, we are thinking about home. And when you are at home, you are thinking about work. So we are totally not absorbed in anything. So and when we are doing one service, we are thinking about something else. When we are rendering service, we are thinking, what will I do maybe later, or what else should I be doing? So and for everyone it could be different. That's what works for me. Because you asked that question, what works for me? So reading Shastra makes me more absorbed in everything else I do. And it inspires me to do more service. So then I try to do more of that. Any other questions?
Did you hear about this in classes that we should be absorbed and we have to move us or process it, but how do we develop determination? So the knowledge is there, but sometimes it's lack of determination which doesn't allow us to be absorbed, like we were talking about Shastras or so we know the right things to do, but sometimes there's no determination to do the right things in consciousness. So how do we do that so that we get more absorbed?
So determination comes from associating with devotees who are determined. So that's one way to get determination. To associate with those who have a level of determination which is much higher than ourselves. So when we associate with them, then it will naturally rub off on us. Then our other point is to live a pure life. Because in the 7th chapter, Krishna explains that because of sinful activities, that determination is lacking. So the more pure life we live, the more we try to live a clean life and be very Krishna conscious, follow the 4 regulative principles, then that determination will also arise in oneself. And then again, earlier point is to find a mentor. Just like in the professional circle, people always want to be with others who are better than them, right? And then they can learn something from them. So to find some devotees who we are inspired by, and then to associate with them and do service with them, then one will gain that determination. Any comment or question or correction? You're missing Mahaprabhu. Where is he? Is he in Melbourne?
How do you define Krishna consciousness?
To be conscious of Krishna. It's Krishna consciousness. To be aware of Krishna. You tell me. What is Krishna consciousness to you? So if you don't have any questions or comments, we'll end here. Thank